And we're back. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Darkest Dungeon quirks. The B and C tier quirks are going to be covered in this video. These are going to be the weaker quirks compared to the S and A tier, which I've already covered. So you're not going to hear me sound as excited. You're going to hear me be a little more pessimistic this time around, mainly because these are weaker quirks. So there's gonna be less to say about them. That's good. But before we get on to the B and C tier quirks and why they are in the B and C tier, I'm going to go over the disclaimer, which is that this quirk tier list, is made with the assumption that quirks are more flexible and generally weaker individually than trinkets. There are 5 quirk slots. So there are 5 positive quirk slots in each of your characters, and each quirk has only one line of text, and generally it's very, very beneficial, or at least it's beneficial. And the 2 trinket slots that you get, trinkets, they have 3 to 4 lines of text sometimes, and they come as a package. So what I mean by that is they come with a lot of upsides and also with downsides that you can't really like circumvent sometimes. So it's a lot less flexible what you could do with trinkets. But they're stronger as a trade-off. The trinkets, that is, than quirks individually. But therefore, to me, quirks are kind of excuses for me not to have to run certain trinkets, just so I can get around maybe some of the trinkets' more heavier downsides. Like if, for example, it has a huge stress component that comes with it, or a huge negative health component that comes with it. If I can quirk for things like dismiss his head, giving damage, and dodge that minus health percentage. I like that. Stuff like that is very, very good to me. So anyway, every quirk that lets me have more freedom in my trinkets, like how I just described with Dismas' head, is going to be rated pretty highly. Those are the S and A tier quirks generally, but there are some here in B and C tier that can work around certain quirks. But enough of the disclaimer, let's get into it. B tier. What I classify as B tier in terms of quirks is maybe if they are worthy of being a 4th or 5th quirk on my characters. So in Darkest Dungeon, you can lock up to 3 positive quirks on each character. So obviously the quirks in the S and A tier, I would say are going to be some of the quirks that are going to be locked, as the first 3 as the 3 those quirks in the upper tiers are going to be the 3 quirks that you're going to lock. And these, I would say, are not as necessary um, for your character's functionality. So these are more of the 4th and 5th slots that are at risk of being replaced instead of the locked quirks. Um, you can still lock some of these quirks if you're really not developing any of the S and A tier quirks. You can lock some of these quirks, and it is okay. But these are in an ideal world, you won't be locking any of these. So it's either a 4th or 5th quirk, or strong-ish kind of on certain classes only. And we're gonna see that as we cover we're gonna see a few. I'm gonna cover a few examples of that as we go down the list. But the first 2 quirks here are Manslayer and Mankind Hater. So type. These are the type quirks that are for humans rather than the Eldritch Slayer and Beast Slayer and Eldritch Hater slash Beast Hater that are in the upper tiers. Uh, the Mankind stuff, the versus human quirks, are in this tier because in the Darkest Dungeon and the endgame content, there's not many humans. And because there's not many humans, you're not going to be generating a lot of value versus versus the hardest content in the game, which is the endgame content. Um, though the thing is, though, that humans are found everywhere else. Um, what I mean by that is that the generic enemies, the cultist brawler and the cultist acolyte, they are humans, and they are generic enemies that you can find in any and every dungeon, other than the darkest dungeons. So you will generate a lot of value off these quirks when you go through the regular dungeons, and that's really, really nice. And of course, in the Warrens, I believe, yeah, in the Warrens, you'll a lot of the enemies are beast humans, so you'll be generating some value off of these quirks in the Warrens. And in the Weald specifically, there's these fungal scratchers are eldritch humans, and the corrupt giant is a human, and so is the not the hag, the crone, the little witch that is behind a giant usually. Those are all humans, so these are okay quirks, but it's just I don't think it's very lockable, because it won't help me in the end game content, is what I believe. But you can see this is at the top of B tier, so I believe these quirks are very, very strong. If you do want to lock them, it's fine. And of course, the same idea. The Slayer quirk is better for damage dealers, and the Hater quirk is better for utility characters. But no one hates having these quirks. These are okay quirks. I'm pretty happy with them. The next set is Eagle Eye and Unearing. These are quirks that buff the capability of ranged attacks for dealing damage. So this is 5 crit and 10% range damage. The thing with 5 crit though is that it's a very offensive stat that comes with slight stress healing benefits, but most of the range damage dealing characters in the game are not very strong. They don't have a good damage range. Most of them, I think. I'm actually comfortable saying all of them don't have a good range. The best range damage dealer in the game is actually Highwayman, but he's more hit when he uses pistol shot and point blank shot. They're more of a supplemental move than they are the main move. Because his best move is Duelist Advance, which is a melee move. So after the Highwayman, the next best range damage dealers are Arbalist, Houndmaster, Grave Robber, Vestal, roughly in that order. And although crit is very nice on Arbalist and Grave Robber, who already have high crits, uh, so you can crit more like consistently. They just don't come. The crits just don't occur on a high enough base damage value for it to really do a lot more damage than someone who's just like a melee damage character who's just hitting the enemy. For example, Arbalist has a maximum damage roll. I can actually show you right here. I always forget to pull this up. But this is I'm going to show you the stats spreadsheet that I used. Yeah, Arbalist has 7 through 14 as a base damage range. So when a crit happens, you take the highest damage and you multiply it by 1.5. So when Arbalist crits, she deals 21 damage. It's very consistent at 21 damage, but you can see that the melee damage dealers like Leper, Hellion, Crusader. Nope, I don't want to do that. And Shield Breaker. They all deal so much more. They don't deal more, but they deal when they high roll, they deal somewhere around like the high teens, which is very, very close to just dealing 21. This is what Arbalist does when she crits 21, and these guys can do like 20s and stuff. Abomination technically is a range damage, is a melee damage dealer as well. So like that, yeah, that's what range has to deal with, being kind of quite inferior to melee damage dealing. Um, Unearing is the same idea. You're just working off of too low of a base damage value to really garner a lot of value off of Unearing. Slugger is although Slugger is very high up because it's in the A tier because melee is so powerful compared to range. Um, but yeah, the best heroes for it obviously are these guys, and the worst ones are, anyone without any range is not going to get any value off of this. So the worst ones are going to be PRs with no range moves. Moving on, Fairweather Fighter. This is plus 20% damage when you are at 99% HP and up. So what this really means, because 99% HP is such a small value, what this really means is if you're at full health, then you get plus 20% damage. That's what the quirk should read to you. But I just copied this off of the text in game, just to make sure I'm not communicating anything incorrectly. But this plus 20% damage is a lot. It's a huge amount. So plus 20% damage is a lot, but the condition is when you're at full HP, and that's really hard because you want your damage dealers to go really fast. You want them to be really fast, and Vestal herself is only an average speed character. Vestal being a healer, and she's the best healer. So when the turn happens, what's gonna happen is your damage dealer is gonna go first, and then your Vestal is gonna go after healing them, which means on average, on an average turn, we'll have your damage dealers going before the Vestal, which means they won't get this buff from Fairweather Fighter because the Vestal won't be able to heal them to full. So if they took any damage the previous round, Fairweather Fighter is actually just a blank quirk. And that's really sad for a quirk to be just blank, right? So it's in the B tier for that reason. It's a very, very strong quirk if it's active, but you'll find that being active is not very easy with Fairweather Fighter. The best people to have this quirk are going to be damage dealers that are slower than the Vestal. So that would be the Crusader, Hellion, and Arbalist, all at 6 speed. Yeah, so Vestal's at 6. Well, it's the same idea. Vestal's at 6, so you're gonna anyone who's 6 and below is very good. So that would be Hellion, Arbalist, Crusader. Generally, anyone down here is going to have make good use of Fair with a Fighter. But these are your, yeah, anything like that. So anyone who is faster than the Vestal is not going to make too good use of this quirk, but it's okay on a lot of people. If they don't get hit at all, obviously, then you don't have to worry about deactivating the quirk. It's not a bad quirk. Deadly. So most fights in this game, they don't really need you to have quirks. Uh, Actually, you know what? Let me not go down that path. I'm gonna edit this later probably, but Deadly just doesn't do enough, is what it is. You're gonna see up here in the S and A tiers, there are quirks that give 5 crit to specific types. There are quirks that give 5 crit just to melee moves. There's quirks that give 4 crit just overall, um, and these are the quirks that it has like Deadly has to like compete against, and all it really does is give plus 2% crit, which is really not that impressive compared to the quirks above. And plus 2 crit is something, and it's nice that it does give both of a stress healing and damage dealing like aspect to the character that has this, but it's just not a lot. And so it I don't think it's very powerful, and it's certainly far from far from the S and A tier category, but it is a B tier, and I don't mind having it as a fourth or fifth quirk. It just meh to me. Yeah, but everyone kind of wants it. It doesn't hurt anyone, obviously. But I guess you know what? I can change this to people who already have pretty high crit, or like Highwayman. He'll be doing a lot of moves with Riposte. Grave Robber has pretty high crit. Arbalist has pretty high crit. Yeah, you're just gonna want these guys to crit. Hellion has high crit. You're gonna want these guys to crit more often than they already do, just to make it more like guaranteed and you can predict it. Bounty Hunter as well. But utility units like the Vestal, Jester, and Plague Doctor, they don't really need this. I mean, Plague Doctor doesn't even do damage based on upfront damage. Jester is probably casting a lot of his his Battle Ballad inspiring tune. Maybe he throws in a slice off once in a while. Vestal is just going to be healing and using weak moves generally, like Judgment that just poke at the enemy. So like stuff like that. These are probably the worst people to have it, but I mean I don't mind. Like these are fine people to have it still. All right, so hard skin. This one gives plus 10% protection. So what what does hard skin do? Hard skin, it gives you like, let's just think of a move that moves. There's very few moves in this game that deal above 10 damage. So most of the time, what hard skin's gonna do, how protection works, is it multiplies. It's like a direct multiplicative reduction to the damage that's incoming. So let's say the move does like 8 damage. So 10% of 8 is zero point 0.8. So 8 minus zero point 0.8 is 7.2, and then it always rounds down from there. So protection will always guarantee you take 1 less damage. So 8 will be changed to 7, 7 will be changed to 6, 6 will be changed to 5, on and on and on. So what you're really seeing with this quirk most of the time most of the time you're getting hit is you're really only saving 1, maybe 2 HP if it does more than 10 damage. Maybe 2 HP. Like so, every time you get hit, you're saving 1 or 2 HP, which is nice. It's a feels good quirk. But if we think about it, dots, which are the more dangerous think parts of the game, bleeds and blights are the more dangerous parts of the game. In the mid and end game, they will do a 3 by 3. They will do 3 damage for 3 turns. So when you resist a dot, you're already saving 9 HP at least in the mid to end game. That's a lot. That's a lot of value you're saving with dot resist rather than protection. And dots are really what harms the player the most, because it's harder to heal dots than it is to heal upfront damage. Dots, you have to wait 3 turns in order to heal, because you have to wait for the dot to tick before you can actually heal the damage that you take. So really, what really kills the player is taking too many dots. Taking really high dots really is really annoying to the player. Not taking like a huge one, like one huge hit. And of course, I'm saying most hits in the game deal less than 10, but let's think about the biggest hits in the game. That would be the crit boom from the cannon or a crit tree branch smackdown. Those deal like upwards of like 60 damage. Both of them, I think. They deal like 50 to 60 or something crazy like that. Most characters in the game don't have that much HP. If they get crit with a tree branch smackdown or a boom crit, they're going down to death's door, whether they had protection or not. The average HP in the game is 43. On average, a character will have 43 health. it's not going to help if they have 10% protection. It's not going to help them survive. So hard skin just doesn't get see like a lot of value is what I'm trying to say. It's still nice, but it's just eh. But the best people to have it are the guarders, so that's Man at Arms and Houndmaster, because they'll be taking hits more often because they'll be guarding some of your allies. Occultist, who is a frontline. Occultist, Grave Robber, and Shieldbreaker, who all see play in the front line. Grave Robber will jump forward to the front line. But these three who will see play in the front line and are really frail to start with, they would appreciate some more protection, just a little bit, and that'd be nice. Obviously, people who have huge HP bars, Leper, Crusader, Arbalest, they don't really need this. They are already very, very durable and do not need more protection. There is a fantasy where you use Leper and Crusader, use their protection skill, that would be Withstand and Bulwark of Faith, respectively, and you have even more protection. But like already, they really didn't need that protection bonus from their skills. They have their HP bar is so off the charts that they're not dying anyway. And if they're dying, your other characters are probably dying along with them. So that's not don't. It's really not that great for these guys. So I'm in post editing right now, and I just listened to myself talk about hard skin, and we're in between hard skin and tough, the explanations for both of those, and I just felt like I didn't do a good enough job explaining why hard skin is bad on the leper and the crusader, and why tough is probably likely to be bad on the leper and crusader as well, or not really as impactful, that is. And a lot of the times in in the Darkest Dungeon Discord, I'll have people tell me that withstand and a bulwark of faith, because they self mark the leper and the crusader, that enemies will attack them more often. And sometimes that's true, enemies will attack them more often, but the AI is actually coded to not really weight self marks on your characters that heavily. Only the only enemies that will have more of a chance to target marked heroes are enemies that have bonus damage against marked versus those heroes. So really, when you're self-marking with the leper and the crusader, um, what you're really doing is nothing except increase the likelihood of marked bonus damage characters to attack your leper and crusader. Otherwise, no other characters in the game really have a bias towards attacking those self-markers. And now we're back to the video. Tough is the other defensive quirk for like getting hit in the face directly. Tough is plus 10% max HP. It's even less exciting than hard skin, because hard skin will save you a lot of HP uh, repeatedly. Tough itself is really, really bad, and the reason for that is HP percentage boosts are really counterintuitive. So high HP characters like the ones I mentioned before, Leper, Crusader, Arbalest, these guys, they don't need more HP. They are already very, very durable and can take a lot of hits. But they are the ones who benefit the most from this plus percent HP bonus, and that's because it's plus percent. If you have a higher base, that means this will work. This will give you more HP. So someone like the Leper Crusader or an Arbalest will get 7, 7, and 5 HP respectively off of this, and those are respectable numbers. Those are all right. Arbalest maybe not is not getting too much out of it, but the low HP characters who do need it, so that would be your occultist, your grave robber, your plague doctor, all of these weaker HP characters. They because this is a percent HP bonus, they're not getting a lot of HP off of this. Occultist, at great, all of these guys that I just mentioned, they will only get like 4 HP from this quirk, which is really really not that exciting. 4 HP is not exciting to have as a full in for at the cost of a full quirk slot. 4 HP is just not enough to me. It's not very very impactful, and not to mention dots are still what kills you. It's not having less too little HP. Yeah, sure, you can take more dots. You can like stall. You can just wait out more dots with more HP, but 4 HP is not a lot. It's really not that exciting. The next one is Prismatic Isolation. This one is plus 25% debuff resist. So this is actually like a really useful quirk in my opinion, but it sees absolutely no value at all in the Darkest Dungeon, because in the Darkest Dungeon there are no really really problematic debuffs that you'll be being applied to you. But like in the regular dungeons, there are debuffs like the Swine Chopper's minus healing received, which really is really annoying in the stalling phase where you're trying to heal up. There's the brawlers that are the cultist brawlers that are everywhere. They give you a plus stress percent debuff, which is minorly annoying. And there are some others that are only found in regular dungeons, like the Cove, which gives you minus disease resist or something like that. Um, but this is more of a feels good quirk than a really good quirk. I don't mind. I don't really think it's really that impressive, but it's a nice quirk to have. It's also a prismatic quirk, so it's unique to one character only. You can only get it in one character in your roster, so that it's a little hard to like land it on the character that needs it most. But the characters who need it most are the frontliners, who will be in the swine choppers range and the brawlers range most of the time. Other than that, it's not really impressive at all. Moving on to the C tier quirks. So these quirks are going to be really unexciting, and we're gonna see as we go through it, as I go through it. But they too technically still help. So they're not actually completely useless, is what I'm going to say about these quirks, but they're really not doing much most of the time, and we're going to see that right away with Unholy Slayer and Hater. So Unholy Slayer and Hater are the uh, type quirks for unholy monsters or enemies, and the reason why they're in C tier is because unholy enemies don't exist at all in the Darkest Dungeons. At least with Manslayer in Darkest Dungeon 4, there's Phase 1, which is a human, and in Darkest Dungeon 4, there's Phase 1, which is human, and in Darkest Dungeon 1, there's a lot of the some of the foot enemies are uh, humans, I guess. But Unholy, there is actually only one enemy in the Darkest Dungeon, which is Unholy, which is the Raptor's cultist, which are actually punching bags. You can heal off of them for forever, and so you actually don't want to be killing the Raptor's cultist at all. So this is actually really really bad in Darkest Dungeons, and in the regular dungeons, there's almost all the unholy monsters enemies are exclusive to the runes. And the runes is actually the easiest area, and it's such a joke how easy the runes are. There's a reason why you're only allowed to play the runes at the beginning of the file, where like they force you to play the runes at the beginning of the file. It's because it's easy. So really, these quirks don't really do much, and the one thing that it does do though is there's a generic enemy which is found in all dungeons, which is unholy, and that's the ghoul. The ghoul is that massive stress caster who's like he's like size 2, and he has a lot of protection and he has a regularish level of dodge. So that's what makes Unholy Slayer actually worse than Unholy Hater. We're facing a stress caster, so this part of Hater is very, very relevant. But he has a bunch of protection, which makes crit not very important. And he has a lot of a very low dodge, so accuracy isn't as important as well. We just want to consistently hit him and do a good amount of damage, which we can do with just Unholy Hater, and we can also be defensive at the same time with this minus stress from his stress attacks. So it's still the same idea though. Vestal, Man at Arms, Occultist. A lot of your utility characters would prefer Hater. Crusader I actually have here for both of these because he is very very good versus Unholy in general. So if you were to really want this quirk on anybody, it would be the Crusader, who you bring a lot of the times into the runes, just to crush it harder, I guess. Um, but yeah, Unholy Slayer again is very very nice on Crusader, and damage dealers in general will want the Slayer version. Uh, of note, though, I believe these characters do not work at all with these quirks. Flagellant, Jester, and Houndmaster, these are going to be characters that are really, really good at bleeding. And bleed characters just don't work at all in the runes. They do so little damage, and specifically these two guys are stress healers. Actually, all three of these are stress healers. That and they would rather just be a crusader instead. If you're if you're trying to take a a stress healer into the runes, you should just take a crusader rather than these guys. They don't do a lot of damage in the runes because they rely on bleeds, and the runes is unbleedable, and crusader is just better than them for in the runes. Natural eye, 5 accuracy on ranged. So the reason why this quirk is here is because most ranged characters already have a very, very high accuracy. Arbalist has the actual highest accuracy in the game at base at 115, and Grave Robber has a pretty high accuracy. I believe it's 110 on her Thrown Dagger. We can actually check it right here since I don't want to give you some misinformation. Grave Robber. She has 100. Let's see. She's got on her Thrown Dagger, which is here. She's got 110. She's got 110 accuracy, and she buffs it even further. You can see she gets a ranged accuracy buff every time she uses. I mean, not a ranged accuracy buff, or just an accuracy buff. So she doesn't need it as well. Houndmasters, they have. He's got the biscuits for when he actually does need to hit. He starts with 105 accuracy, and so he really really likes natural eye. Having natural eye is very nice for the Houndmaster, but those biscuits will come in handy when he really needs accuracy as well. So it's really not that exciting on a Houndmaster either. Vestal is your next best damage dealer after these three, and she's not gonna need this. Like she's gonna be healing a lot of the time. If she's not healing, she's just really poking people with dazzling light, the stun or judgment, and it's not really that like needed to hit with Vestal. And her quirk setup is already really really loaded with Hippocratic being needed. Like you rather like have Hippocratic, Luminous, Photomania, or some of these better quirks up top. You're not going to find much space on a vessel to run Natural Eye. But yeah. So really, the only character I think that really like wants it is Houndmaster, and Occultist and Abomination I have here as question marks because they've got a stun that you would like to hit a lot of the time, and both their stuns are ranged moves. So that's would be Hands from the Abyss for the Occultist and Manacles for the Abomination. But they actually have pretty good accuracy as well at 110 each. So it's like question mark for them here. Occultist also has a lot of other debuffs you like to hit with which are ranged, like Weakening Curse and Vulnerability Hex, but they're already pretty high accuracy as well. So eh. But yeah, overall, no one really needs it or wants it, so I'd say it's pretty C tier. So gifted and gothic I have together here, but for different reasons. Gifted is plus 20% healing received, so this is when this character gets healed, they get plus 20% more healing, which is a lot worse than Hippocratic, which is just plus 20% healing given. So, what happens when you put Hippocratic on a healer is she. I'm gonna use she here because the vessel is the best healer. She'll heal everybody for plus 20% more. So that is the same. Having Hippocratic on your vessel is the same as having gifted on each and every single character in your comp. So what gifted does on four people, Hippocratic does on just one person. They're the exact same. So that's why gifted is not very exciting to me. And actually, a lot of characters won't be able to use gifted on their own because a lot of characters just don't have healing moves. So it's really not that impressive. So really, my issue with this quirk is that it's just a very narrow window of usage, and it really does almost nothing. But it does make your off healers heal for more. So maybe it's okay. And if your off healers heal more, you get other actions in. Save some action economy. That's pretty good, and that's why I have like a bunch of off healers here. Occultist, Arbalist, Crusader. Occultist is not really an off healer, but when he misses his heal, not misses, when he rolls low on his heal, he'll heal really really poorly. So I'm not really happy with the occultist if I don't get a buff. So gifted is here just yeah, occultist is here just because it's nice when you can turn like a medium or a low heal into a more acceptable heal. But yeah, other than that, these are all off healers, and yeah. But again, no one really hates having it. It's like an okay quirk to have. But what I said about the occultist earlier is going to be very apparent when we talk about Gothic. It has an even narrower window of usage, but the Occultist is one of the better healers that is considered acceptable, and staying alive is important, right? And the Occultist just isn't reliable. So like when the Occultist rolls a medium or low roll again, you just want to make it a little more reliable, more consistently higher, and that's good for the Occultist. So yeah, I have the Occultist here, and Plague Doctor, who is a general good partner with the Occultist. I have for having, I have down as good to have Gothic, as well. But yeah, any other than that, self healers just really don't need Gothic. They can handle themselves. So here we've got a set of quirks that I like to call the dodge quirks. The dodge quirks I think are really really weak in the game. Right here I have C Luminous and S tier. So we're gonna scroll up to Luminous real quick. Luminous is +2 speed and +5 dodge versus Quick Reflexes, which is just +2 speed. Um, so what the developers did when they designed Luminous is they took Quick Reflexes and they said, "Oh, we can add +5 dodge to that, and it'll be pretty balanced, and we'll release that as Luminous and call it a day." So they thought what that means is they thought they could power creep Quick Reflexes, one of the best quirks in the game, almost hands down, by 5 dodge and still think that's balanced. And what does something like Corvid's Grace and Evasive do? They give roughly 5 dodge, and Evasive directly gives 5 dodge. Corvid's Grace gives 1 more. But Evasive itself gives plus 5 dodge. So Evasive is very, very weak, and the developers have kind of admitted that by power creeping quick reflexes like that. So, and I agree with them. I agree with them because dodge itself is not a very, very consistent stat. It's very hard to predict when you will dodge, and most of the time you won't be dodging anyway. Most of the time you'll be taking hits to the face. Um, so it's not really that impressive to increase your chances of dodging by only 5% more. It's nice, but it's not anywhere near strong unless you are fully invested in a dodge comp with like double antiquarian, man at arms bolster, stuff like that. Corvus Grace is giving 1 extra dodge and plus 25 move resist. But I also say here, see balanced in E tier for explanation on why move resist is weak. Let's scroll down to balanced. Balanced is over here. Prismatic stability and balanced. So really, it's prismatic stability, is what it is. Prismatic stability. All right, I'm not gonna actually explain it right here. You can read it if you want. I'm gonna pause it here for a bit for you, so you can read the explanation. And we'll go back up afterwards. Right. So that's why Corvus Grace is really, really not that great. Um, and so these are both here for that reason. Really, when I see Corvus Grace, I just read plus 6 dodge. The plus 25 move resist is irrelevant to me. And Daredevil is actually a very interesting one. I had a lot of problems placing this quirk anywhere, but I decided to just place it with the rest of the dodge quirks, and I think it's one of the worst dodge quirks because it directly anti-synergizes with your main game plan. Pinch 25, which means like when you're at 25 HP, 25% HP and below, you get plus 15 dodge, and that directly anti-synergizes with your main game plan of keeping everyone at as high health as possible. Um, because if you keep everyone above 25% HP, defensive buffs that only apply when you're at low HP is just not going to work. This is going to be a blank quirk a lot of the time, and it's really not that impressive. And let's just say you get hit from 26% HP. You're not having this dodge up, right? And you still get hit as consistently as you were before. So being at 26% is not too far. Like 20, like that's pretty low. That's pretty low already, being at 26%, and being in the 30% are actually pretty low HP as well. You can get hit crit from 30% or 26% down to 0, and that entire time Daredevil just wasn't helping you. The other thing that when we evaluate pinch quirks like this, we always have to think of the scenario of you're on death's door with a dot on you. Or you're on death's door and you got hit, or you're doing a death blow roll, or like you're about to be hit. Well, what I'm trying to say is, if you're on death's door and you are about to be hit, how much death blow resist is Daredevil worth? And I did the math and everything, and 15 dodge is roughly equivalent. So it roughly equates to about 4.95 death blow resist, 4.595% death blow resist. Um, so that's really not that impressive when you compare it directly to Unyielding, which is worth 10 death blow resist. So its quirk just doesn't do much, is what I'm trying to say. I have here no clue who needs this. I really don't know. Maybe something like, I guess we could say like just people like Jester, Grave Robber, who else? Shieldbreaker. Like these frail characters that are probably going to find themselves on like low HP a lot. They might need it, and these are all characters that kind of rely on dodge to stay alive. Occultist, yeah, these are characters who rely on dodge to stay alive, and having more dodge to make it a little more consistent is not that bad of an idea. So yeah, I guess these are the best characters to have it, but I don't know who like is worst on it. Technically helps everyone, but again, not that exciting. So I've got here resilient and musical. Resilient is a lot worse than steady, which is up here. Steady is minus 10% incoming stress, while resilient is plus 10% stress heal received. The difference between these two is steady is always active, and resilient is only active when you are taking an action and stress healing. So or when you crit or kill an enemy, that's when resilient will pop up and heal you for about 1 point extra. So stress heals will always round up. So this buff will always heal you at least 1 extra stress, which is nice. It's cool, but when the problem with resilient is that when you set up stalls to heal stress, You can heal a lot of stress. I've taken characters from 100 stress with affliction straight down to 0 stress to cure that affliction. So just when you set up a stall, it's not going to be relevant whether you healed for 4 extra on a turn or 3 extra, or whether you healed for 4 or 3 on a turn. So it's really not that impressive to me. Actually, I don't even know why I have Flagellant here. He doesn't actually stress heal himself. So I'm gonna say no one, no clue. Who needs this? Yeah. But the people who really don't need it are people who are stress healers or have a self stress healing moves. Like Leper Abomination are the self healers that heal their own stress. Jester Crusader Houndmaster, they heal stress as well. Uh, you can set up stress stalls with these guys and they'll heal all of the stress you need. So really oh, I guess you know what, here, it's damage dealers. Damage dealers will need this the most. Will make the most out of it. Not need it the most, but they'll make the most out of Resilient because they'll be doing the critting, they'll be doing the killing, and so they will make the most out of Resilient. So if you run no stress healers on your team and have just a bunch of damage dealers and try and rush the enemy down, just bum rush them down, it's nice to have Resilient on a few of them. Again, don't lock it. This is the really weak tier. Don't lock it, but that's who would use it the most. So musical is the same idea. It's a plus stress heal, but this time only from the Jester. The Jester is really not doesn't really doesn't need this. Like the Jester can heal stress on his own so efficiently that musical is actually not needed at all. Actually, I'm about to downgrade. I'm gonna downgrade musical. The more I think about it, the just more ridiculous it is to even consider musical good enough to be here. So I'm going to. It's probably a like even lower. D tier is just. I'm gonna downgrade it next to spiritual because Vestal also doesn't need it, and that's the argument for that. So who needs it more? Is spiritual better or is musical better? Probably musical's worse. Just because again, you sometimes you need to heal on demand sometimes, and so spiritual is nice, but you don't need to stress heal that aggressively on demand. But yeah, musical is just not needed. So we talked about musical, we talked about spiritual, kind of just no one needs it. Have vessels healing too consistently and too efficiently to really have anyone need it. But we skipped over faded, and so let me go back to faded real quick. So what faded does is there's a whenever you miss, there's a 10% chance to change that miss into a hit instead. So when your character fails to connect with a move onto one of the enemies, sometimes they'll say miss and sometimes they'll say dodge. I'm not actually sure, like if that matters to faded because it says it only changes a miss to a hit and not a dodge to a hit. So I'm not exactly positive what it does. We're gonna ignore the difference between miss and hit for now, for the sake of calculation, for the sake of argument here, and we're just gonna say they both mean the same thing. So whenever your character fails to connect with a move onto an enemy, this quirk activates. Is what I'm going to pretend like this quirk does. So let's just say you'll almost always have about 70% chance to hit. If you're quirking and like trinketing for for accuracy, you'll at worst have 70% chance to hit. So 70% chance to hit means that you have 30% chance to miss, right? And in that 30, so 10% of 30% is 3%. So that's what faded does. It in the worst case scenario, it gives you 3% extra chance to hit, which means it's roughly worth 3 accuracy. And 3 accuracy as a quirk is super weak. We've got quirks here that just give 5 accuracy to ranged. Actually no, my bad. You've got quirks up here that give just plus 5 accuracy. Natural swing just gives plus 5 accuracy. Precise striker, I mean not precise striker, like just like a bunch of these gives like 10 accuracy. See, all of these 10 accuracy, 10 accuracy, 8 accuracy, 8 accuracy. There's just a lot of quirks that give accuracy, and they give a lot more. Um, so really, what Faded does is not that impressive. 3 accuracy is okay, but this is definitely one of the weaker quirks for accuracy, which is still nice. Accuracy is a nice thing to quirk for, but 3 is just very low. There's a bunch of trinkets that just give you 3 accuracy as well. There's a bunch of trinkets that give you more than 3 accuracy as well, and instead of using, so yeah. So like it's better when you think about faded. It's probably just better just to like just bite the bullet and just use the trinket instead, because a lot of the accuracy trinkets in the game, like focus ring, they also come, it's 10 accuracy plus 5 crit. And so that's a lot better than just using a weak quirk such as Faded, or like Surgical Gloves, which is actually I always forget Surgical Gloves like numbers, but it's just a lot, much more impressive than what Faded has to offer. Yeah, it gives +5 accuracy to melee skills, which is nice, and also gives +8 crit. So that's a lot more impressive than what Faded can do. So really, just it's just an inferior version of other accuracy quirks, but it still technically helps everyone who has it. So yeah, now we get to the core of its resilience and robust. These are disease resist quirks, and diseases are pretty annoying. Yeah, I admit that, but they're really easy to cure. Between the sanitarium work and plague doctor and grave robbers camp skills, and when we evaluate these quirks, yeah, they really they will help you against things like the Crimson Curse, does a disease roll at the end of the day, and also diseases that are applied to you mid dungeon. They help to like shake those off, and that's the thing that they do better than uh, Sanitarium and Plague Doctor and Grave Robber. Uh, they're more like accessible versions of mitigating diseases, is what I'm trying to say. But a lot of the time, you can kind of bite the bullet of the disease, finish the dungeon, and then put the person in the sanitarium. Or a lot of the time, you might have a grave robber or a plague doctor on the team at the same time, and be able to cure the diseases all in one go. Actually, all three of these: sanitarium, grave doctor, plague robber. Plague robber, grave robber, grave whatever, plague doctor, grave robber, sanitarium removal. All three of these, they have the ability to remove all of the diseases on your character at the same time. So they can remove up to 3 diseases. Meanwhile, Corva's resilience and robust, it it's it's just not as efficient in clearing them. I find resisting is just not as efficient because you start at like base, like let's see. Most characters, disease resist. So yeah, so most characters have about a 30% chance to resist diseases. So only giving like +15 more is what, it takes you like 45. Yeah, it takes you like 45%, which is it's not consistent enough at resisting diseases for me to think that it's better than these. And so when we're thinking about these two quirks, we really have to evaluate them based on how much gold they save or how much camp points they save. And they really don't save enough for me to really care. I'm okay with just putting people in the sanitarium, or using a grave robber or a plague doctor to remove those diseases. And so um, that's the idea. Everyone kind of likes it. If you give me more disease resist, I don't mind. But the people who need it the least are Plague Doctor and Grave Robber, because they will always be they will always be able to cure at least their own diseases. So they really don't care. And here I have Twilight Dreamer as the last quirk. This is probably this is a very very niche quirk. Um, so the reason why what it does is ignore stealth, and it's a unique quirk, so it only goes on one character in your roster. It ignores stealth, and when I queue into a fight with a stealth enemy, I really just ignore the stealth enemy until they unstealth themselves, and it's always 2 turns before. It's always 2 turns later that they unstealth themselves. So in those first 2 turns, I'm totally fine. There's 3 other characters sometimes to hit and to interact with, and I'd rather just interact with those guys and wait out the stealth, and then target the stealth person all at the same time. Um, so really what this quirk is most used for is if you think that the stealth person is super super dangerous and you really really want to somehow get an action in on them. And of course most of these stealth enemies, which the 4 enemies that are stealth, there's one in each area, is the shaman in the cove, the swine hooker in the warrens, the bone swordsman in the ruins, and the last one is the crone in the Weald. Yeah, the crone in the Weald. Those are the 4, and most of those guys have either some form of protection, or they have a decently large HP pool to be able to resist a single hit from your damage dealer. So because only one person can ignore stealth on your team, because only one person can have Twilight Dreamer, you're not going to want to hit the stealth person because it's not going to kill them. So what you're really going to do is you're going to use it mostly for stuns. And so single target stunners who would like to have access to being able to stun the stealth enemy are Bounty Hunter, Occultist, Houndmaster, Vestal, and Abomination. These are all your single target stunners. They would all like to have some way to interact with that stealth character. I say single target stunners only because the AoE stunners of Hellion and Plague Doctor, they will be able to target the other person that isn't stealthed, and therefore just coincidentally hit the stealth person with a stun anyway. So Plague Doctor and Hellion just accidentally have stealth ignore built in, but basically everyone else doesn't really care about this quirk. It's just not helping most of the time. Whew. So that's the B and C tier quirks. A little more pessimistic as we got near the end. Really not that helpful, the quirks. But next time I'm going to cover the D and E tier quirks, and that's where we're going to get really, really sad because these quirks are really bad. And I actually haven't even wrote an F tier yet. But F tier quirks are going to be quirks that literally make your characters worse. And that's going to be exciting to cover because I think it's really neat that some positive quirks could ever potentially even make your characters worse. But that's for next video. I'm going to edit this video and try to get it out tonight, but we'll see what happens. Anyways, thank you for watching.